Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Anomalous Realities. I am Shaman Lenita Elder, and I am back from a bit of a hiatus. I got one of those nasty viruses that I guess everybody's kind of getting at this time of the year. And it just knocked me out for a couple of weeks, and I'm actually kind of still fighting it off. But I'm good to go. We have a really special guest this week, an author and an abductee. Her name is Sherry Wilde, and her book is called The Forgotten Promise. Sherry will be joining us. She has been having... What was that, Patrick?
Might be here now.
Okay, we got a call coming in. That should be her.
I've been trying.
There we are. Yes. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we just got going. So welcome to the show, Sherry.
Thank you.
I was just kind of introducing you a little bit and letting people know who you are. Your book is The Forgotten Promise, and it's about your experiences from very early in life. Is that correct? Like really young?
Yeah, very young. Very, very young.
And now your book is published through Ozark Mountain Publishing, correct?
It is Dolores
Yes. Oh my goodness. And see, this is actually kind of a roundabout story of how I came to contact Sherry to be a guest on the show, because we missed each other this year at the UFO conference. Sherry was a speaker, and I got the video that we go through because I was there with my husband, Creations by Elder. He does stained glass art. And we were downstairs all the time during the conference as vendors in the vendor area, but we get the videos, so I'm able to watch later. And I ended up, because I am a voice actress, so I do audiobook narrations. I go to check on my current books and see what, my current reviews are. And as soon as I hit audible.com, it shows your book.
Oh, really? Really?
Your book is like right there front and center. And I'm like, huh. So I don't even get to my stuff yet. I'm just like, that's really curious. So this is the suggested thing for me. So I decide to look you up, and I go to your page and I look up, what your book's about and everything. And then I find some more links, and I go here and there, and it's like, she was just at the UFO conference this year. How did we miss each other? And I knew that was just this last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I've been there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And so I watched the video. Oh, good. Because we're going to be there for both. Are you going to be there for Transformation as well?
I don't think so. I'm coming in on Thursday.
Okay. Well, you might be then, because they're doing like 7 days, I think. It's like back to back. It's gonna be pretty intense. So yeah, we're gonna be up there that whole time too, so we can meet in person then.
Right.
But that's crazy. So yeah, the Transformation Conference this year, you weren't there, were you?
I was at the UFO conference,
but not the
This will be my 4th year, huh?
They did a tribute to Dolores for the Transformation Conference, and it was very emotional.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was not there for that one. I was there. I was sick. Yeah, I was too sick to
go. Oh no.
I was there for the UFO conference. And
right.
I had intended to go down for the Transformation, even though I wasn't speaking at it. But I couldn't. Yeah, I was too sick to come. But yes, I heard about it. It was wonderful.
Now, did you? I know that you went through someone different when you did your first hypnosis session. Did you ever do any sessions with Dolores?
I couldn't get her to do a session with me. Every time I would ask her, I asked her early on when I met her, and she said, "Oh no, I'm so busy." And I tried to go to the proper channels, and I found out she was booked like for 3 years or something.
I know.
And then I talked to her daughter Julia about it, and Julia said, "Oh, let me talk to her," and because I had my contact continues, and I had an incident in November of 2011 that was partially very conscious.
Right.
The ship for me, and we, getting out of the car, and we walked to the ship, and so I had a really great encounter, and I was on the ship for a couple hours with my friend, and we both had recall of certain things, and I wanted to explore that because it was linked. A lot of information was available if I could have accessed those memories, but no, never got to, unfortunately. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I was in the same predicament. And the thing is I lived like an hour from her, but I could not get an appointment with her because she was just always booked. I was fortunate enough, and actually same year as you're mentioning, 2011, I was fortunate enough to meet her that year at that transformation conference. It was the year that Giorgio was there, and she was celebrating her birthday. And she had the most amazing energy. Just being in the same room with her, it was like electric. And to be honest with you, we felt that this year. When we were there, you could feel she was still with us. It was.
Oh yeah, she's still very involved, and she came to me not too long ago. So I actually was pulling out of the circuit, and I'm not doing anywhere near as many interviews or conferences this year because of being sick. But I was thinking about shutting it all down completely. And she gave me a visit. She's so cute because she's still got that personality. She's very direct, and I love that about her because I can be the same way. And she just tells you, there was one time when I had spoken at the UFO conference, and then they had me back right away for the transformational conference. And they said, but you have to give a different talk. And I said, yeah, I can just pick up where I left off and go into the more spiritual side of this, is what I was planning to do. So I was at the transformational conference, and they were putting the mic on me, and I was getting ready to go on stage. So, 2 minutes away from going on stage, and she comes up to me, and she goes, now, Sherry, I want you to give the exact same speech that you gave at the UFO conference. And I said, oh, Dolores, no, I have a PowerPoint, and I'm ready to do it. And she said, you give exactly, word for word, I want the exact same speech that you gave at the UFO conference. It was so popular, people are still talking about it, and we want that same speech. And I was like, well, that was a 90-minute speech. I only have 60 minutes. And she said, just do it.
Go with it.
So there I was. And I threw away my speech. Yeah, so I walked up there, and I just did the best I could. And I got through it, and I love that about her. She's a dynamo,
She had a beautiful energy, and I have to say, speaking of energy, as I'm watching your presentation for this year's on the DVD that we get, you can see your energy, like your aura is enormous around you, and it's like following you all over that stage. Every time you move, you shift, you can see your energy shifting with you. I've not seen that with anybody else. And my son, one of my twins was watching with me because he's seen them too. And so we're looking at that, and I point that out to him. He's like, look at that. And I was like, yeah, I know, look, that energy is following her back and forth. It was unreal.
A lot of people, every time I give a talk, people come up and talk to me about it. And I had people actually take pictures of me on the stage. I haven't posted, I think, on Facebook. Maybe I do. And the energy goes between purple, violet, blue to green, which is the communication. And I have people tell me that they see my guide George, a real big guy who's right with me. He's walking right along behind me. I can kind of face the stage back and forth as I'm talking, and he's walking. They say he's walking right behind me with his hands clasped behind his back and just following right. When I turn and walk back, he's like doing the same thing. And then they say, and then there's these ETs with me. And it's interesting because everybody when they come up individually, and they say, "Do you know you have ETs on the stage with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I asked them to describe them wise, and they always describe them, and they always say the same thing, and they always explain. They always say, at one point, I had one speech where they said they actually like came out of you. This one guy, he said it kind of freaked me out. He said they like jumped out of you, and I said, "Yeah, well, that's because that's kind of them speaking through me." And it's been interesting because it's very confirming when everybody gives you the same story, unaware that. But then it changed I was in Sacramento not too long ago doing a speech at an experiencers conference, which was really great. And because I've been so sick and had some issues with stuff going on here at my house, it was decided that I needed extra protection. And so they sent in some Pleiadians, which I work with them, but I've never had them actually, be, full-time bodyguard. And that's what they're doing right now. They're kind of, they're giving me added protection. And so it was so interesting when I went to Sacramento, and the people started coming up afterwards, like usual, and saying, "Do you know that you had some ETs with you on the stage?" I'm like, "Yeah." "What did they look like?" And I expected the same, they would be little, guys. They stood about this high. And instead they all said the same thing. "You had a Pleiadian standing like guard right on each one on each side of you." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's like they were standing right there next to you." And because at that conference, I didn't walk around. I didn't feel well enough to do that. And so I just stood there at the podium. And so I thought that was really confirming and affirming to know that, it's not just our imagination. These beings are real, and so it's happening. It's happening. Yeah.
So the Pleiadians kind of present pretty much like a human.
Yeah, the Pleiadians do present themselves as very much looking like humans. And that's why that's why they're probably going to be our first contact when, as far as open contact, it will come probably from the Pleiadians because they are
this time around
more acceptable to us. We get scared, and I still get scared of my guy, the way he looks when he comes in good form, when he comes in his astral body. I love that when he's like that because it's just light and stuff. But when he comes in and his
you've
body,
seen him as just pure light before?
It's not really light so much as it's an etheric body.
Okay.
So it's got a form to it, and it just you have the light coming through his eye, like his eyes, where his eyes are on the etheric body. So I'm used to seeing him like that, and that's comforting to me. But when he comes in that container, which looks like a little gray,
right,
it scares me.
It's a little more disturbing response.
Yeah, and I told him that once. I said, "Why do you do that? That scares me." I said, "Can't you come? Why don't you come in as a human or something?" And he said, "I scare you?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You scare me the way that you look." And he goes, "Have you ever looked in the mirror?" He said, "You humans and your teeth." He said, "Just look how scary that is." I thought that was hilarious. And and he's right. He said, "You do that thing you call smiling," and he said, "It's baring your teeth." He said, "It's scary." He said, "So don't tell me about scary." He's like, "Oh
gosh.
Right, okay." That's funny. So it's all in your perception, what you're used to.
Now, when was the first time that you met Da? When did he first communicate with you?
I've known him before coming here. So I've always.
Oh, really?
I've known him for who knows, and but he agreed to be like my team when I came in as a volunteer. And so, but my first contact with him once I was on this side was when soon after I was born. I was an infant, and I stood by the crib out of my body, looking at the body that I was supposed to, be inhabiting, and him giving me a hard time about it and saying, "So how are you liking that?" Kind of a thing. That's not how I said it, but it was kind of like, because actually I did not, when I volunteered to come here, my soul family did not really want, it took some pushing on my part to be able to get in to come here because it was argued that it wasn't probably a real good decision for me to come, but I was able to do it because Da supported me and said that, they would be very careful with me and they would watch and stay in constant contact with me, and that's what they've done. That's why I've had so many experiences, and most of my so-called abductions occurred during the day, is because it was less frightening for me.
Right.
So, he's been part of my team, and so we work together to try to make this happen.
And now that's probably something that the viewers need to know. Um, as you're talking about this, they probably need a little bit of clarity on,
Yeah.
why, how you knew him beforehand as being a volunteer and, that. Do you want to elaborate on that a little for the listeners?
Yeah. Okay. So most people would consider me an abductee because, and I did too early on, because you come in behind the veil and of course you forget. So the truth is, we're all a soul, so we're all eternal. And so we're just, when I volunteered to come here, it was in the linear year of 1947 when Gaia sent out a call after the atomic bomb had been detonated on planet Earth, and the timeline at that time showed that she was going to be destroyed, and all of humanity, of course, with her. So the call went out for volunteers to come to try to assist humanity, since she was going to go ahead and move into the fifth dimension. She was not going to hold back her ascension any longer. She had held back her and stayed in three dimension as she waited for humanity to awaken. But every time humanity had the opportunity to move into the higher frequencies, it occurs in creation on a regular basis, the opportunity to move up the ladder of evolution, you might call it. And every time that there was that opportunity, there was, there was an upset, and it didn't happen. And so the souls on planet Earth have been trapped here for a long time. So when she decided to, if rightly so, to go on her own evolutionary path and not wait for the humans on her body to go with her, it was decided that we had to do all we could to try to come in and assist the Earth humans in awakening. So the call went out for volunteers, and so the planet was flooded with people, with souls from higher frequencies that came from a sixth dimension and a low sixth dimensional space. And a lot of entities, a lot of souls came in from fifth, sixth dimensions and stepped down their frequency to come onto the planet to try to raise the vibration just by being here. A lot of those souls, a lot of those volunteers are what you call, frequency holders, and they just be who they are, and it just has the effect of pulling up the energy. And so we all play different roles in different parts, and we started coming in the late 1940s or so. I came in on December of 1950, and so I consider myself a volunteer. But early on, Dolores coined that phrase. My guys, the way they put it to me, I was a participant in a program, is the way they explained it to me when they started to lift the veil to show me. Because I was frustrated, and I said, "Why are you so involved in my life? Why am I having so much of this activity, and why are you teaching me all these things?" They were teaching me to be a light reader, and they were teaching me that time doesn't exist and that we're multidimensional beings and all kinds of stuff. And I said, why can't I just live? I'm here on Earth. Let me just live a normal life. And they explained, no, you're a participant in a program. You volunteered to come here and do a specific job. You have work to do. And I said,
work to do.
And so it was interesting. Yeah, and so I came in as a volunteer, as so many millions did, and my job was to
and still are
participate. Yeah, I re-upped. I was supposed to leave in the early 1990s, but I stayed on for a second round, and I came in originally to to be a participant in the hybrid program, and because of the time in 1950 when I came in, at that time, the humans on planet Earth, for the most part, by and large, very small fraction, if you were going to be able to awaken enough to ascend with the planet. So I came in to participate in the hybrid program, which means that the humans were going to be lost. The souls would be going back to the source to be recalibrated, which is the word my guide told me to use, recalibrate the souls, they said. So and they didn't want to lose the evolved Earth humans. They wanted to save that biological entity. So I came in and participated in the hybrid program, which means they picked me up very often during the years when my body was producing eggs. and they would harvest the eggs and use those to a lot of them are in storage, but I have several children. Some are hybrids. Most are human, but they're tweaked. They tweak.
Right.
They what do they call it? They call it enhancing. They call it enhancing the DNA. So that's why I was here. But then, as we got closer after the harmonic convergence in 1987, things started to change on planet Earth. There was a great influx of light, and it had a huge impact, and people started to spontaneously start to awaken. And so when my guys came back and around that time, that's what the book is about, during that period of time of intense activity in the late 1980s. And my encounters, I was having intense, spending lots and lots of time with them, and they were training me for the work I was going to be doing now during the ascension period. And I didn't understand it at all. It was very confusing for me. And that's what the book is about me coming to terms with the fact that I thought I was a victim. It seemed like I was a victim. They were picking me up and taking me on the ship, and I was disappearing from places, for hours on end. And I didn't understand it at all. And but little by little, it came clear, and I stepped out of the fear. And once I stepped out of the fear and turned and looked at the whole situation, I could see that these beings who were teaching me that we are all one with our Creator, and that there's a great shift taking place, a great change taking place on the planet, about to take place, and they were here to assist humanity. I thought, well, where's the evil in that? When they're talking to me, all they do, they honor the Creator continually. They talk about the Creator continually. There's no evil there at all. The evil is just in my own mind, because
it's a natural human response to their otherness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I meant about being a volunteer, and the whole background on that.
And now you grew up in Wisconsin, right?
Right.
Okay. Because I'm from Wisconsin too, and it seems to be a very not just a UFO hotspot, but also a paranormal hotspot. There's a lot of ghost activity in Wisconsin.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here in Wisconsin. We're one of those quiet states you don't hear very often, but I've wanted to leave for a long time, and I have not. I've just not been allowed to leave. I've been able to go down to Arizona. That's where I wrote the book. That the energy came in much clearer down there in the desert. And I love Arizona. I'd moved in a heartbeat, but I'm being kept here in Wisconsin, and that's where they want me, so that's where I'll stay. So, yeah,
I'm not there now, but that's where I grew up, and that's where, I had a lot of unusual experiences as a child. And
where at? Where was it at that you lived?
Near La Crosse.
La Crosse,
so
beautiful.
Yeah, just directly north, kind of where you are.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful
gorgeous.
State. It's just,
I love the bluff.
Yeah.
It's the kind of country that just kind of opens up the soul. Maybe that's why there's so much activity there. I don't know, because it really is kind of a very spiritual type of land in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of Indian. I think there's been a lot of Indian. There's a lot of Indian.
Yeah, I'm Native.
As the Native American.
Yeah.
So I think that might have something to do with it, but I've traveled the world a fair amount, not extensively, but a fair amount, and I don't find any place as beautiful as Wisconsin, really.
It's just gorgeous. Well, now I'm in this area right now. I'm in northeastern Oklahoma, which is really close to Arkansas, and it's the Ozarks. So that's why I was at the UFO conference, because I live here, and this place is as close as you can get to being like Wisconsin.
It is. It
really
love
is, and I think that's why I was so content with being okay with being here, because it reminded me of home.
It is. It's beautiful there. I love Oklahoma. I love the Ozarks. Beautiful.
And they get quite a bit of activity around here too. There's a lot of UFO activity. There's Bigfoot activity here. You get all kinds of strange things happening around here, and there's theories that, the Bigfoot are another race of extraterrestrial, which goes off in a totally different direction. But yeah, my most dramatic UFO sightings were in Wisconsin.
Really?
So yeah. Both of them. One. Gosh, it was about probably around 1986 or so. First one.
1986.
Yep, around that time.
Okay. Yeah, that's about when the slap that occurred, the big slap that was major slap in the world, and that happened. That started in, I think that started in either late '86 but it was in '87 for sure, and '88 right into there. And for me, it continued. The contact with them continued for about 18 months, 2 years, and they were coming, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Every Friday night. I had a date with them every Friday night. So, yeah.
But the thing is you don't know it until you remember it. It's like, but the sightings, they don't make you forget those usually. My mom was there. Apparently, my brother was there. He says I don't remember him being with us when we were observing it, but he was much younger. He was probably about 3 or 4 years old at the time, but he says he remembers it. Just crazy.
Well, the thing that I have learned about contact with the ETs and our cosmic family is that when you have these encounters, and whether there's people with you or what the circumstances are, there's a high level of strangeness to it, which all UFO investigators will tell you. And we had in the book I talk about, I think I call it the night of the blue light. The way we started to call it. It was the night when both of my children and their each had friends over, and then my husband and myself, we were all participants in this visit from the ETs. Although I believe that was a mill lab, but I if I had to, I'm pretty sure that was a mill lab. But still, it still has the military abduction for those who don't know, and so
really,
kind of thing. Yeah, the nasties. But they tend to come around, to try to fear, put fear in you, because this is because of the behavior that night. But everybody had a different opinion as to, basically the story was pretty much the same, but the details were all really jumbled, and it was so fascinating to hear each one tell, no, you did this, and then, because I walked out onto the balcony and I said, they're here. I don't remember doing that. I saw a blue light flashing. My kids swore it was a bright green light. We all heard him out on the lawn calling my daughter's name. We heard the dog crying and whimpering. We heard the doorbell buzz, as the electricity flared up and then went out. We all shared certain key points, but what happened and what sequence and how we all responded to it, that's all very mumble jumbled. So it's very interesting.
That is, I can see why you think that it might have been military instead, just because, they might be trying to make it confused and, make you question. I think that's why that's why there's the shared experiences. I'm one of my saving graces. You probably missed the intro of the show, but I'm a shaman. I'm from the Ho-Chunk Nation in northern Wisconsin. And one of my saving graces has always been that pretty much every weird thing that's happened in my life, there's been somebody else there to witness it. It's not just been me experiencing it. And I think there's a specific reason for this, is because they're trying to make sure that we don't question our sanity, that we don't pass off what happens to us as nothing, because that's our first instinct. Am I correct or not? It's our first instinct is just to say, you know what, that was probably this or that, and pass it off as nothing.
Exactly. Well, in my book I talk about, I have a couple instances in there. The one is when I was 17 and they dropped me in the middle of winter, Wisconsin winter, which is cold. They dropped me at my girlfriend's house, which is where they picked me up a lot out there. So I remember getting out of bed and walking out in just my nightshirt and nothing else, and just walking out and going onto the ship with them. And then later they dropped me behind the pig pen in the corral, in the pig pen in the middle of winter, barefoot and just a T-shirt. And the house was way across the way. I remember them kind of like spitting me out onto the ground. And I look up and I go, wait a minute, because I was scared. I didn't know if they had the right place. I didn't know where it just opens up just like in the movies, and it just kind of spits you out, and you drop down to the ground. And I fell in a heap down onto the ground. And then I was standing up, and I was looking up at the ship, and it just went straight up, and it 1 second, and then it just off to the east, and just gone in a heartbeat. And I was screaming at him, and I was saying, wait, and I didn't know where I was. It took me the longest time. I started groping around in the dark until my eyes got used to the dark. And anyway, people say, well, why, that's not very loving, and I said, I had to agree. And I said, I don't know why they did that, And so in that instance, and then there was an instance where Da came one night here, and this was recently. This was in 2010 or 2011. He came, and they were working with me, and they put his face up on the ceiling of my bedroom. And my partner that I was with, we both laid there and looked at it. And I said, that is just creepy, And the more I looked at it, the more I got angry. And then pretty soon I started to get scared, and I was like, this is just creepy. And I asked them, in both instances, I said, sometimes you do some things I don't understand, and it frightens me. And in both instances, he said, those are what we call imprints. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the face on the ceiling, he said, you talk yourself out of our encounters. He said, we can come there and be talking to you for half the night, and he said, and working with you, and the next morning you'll wake up and you'll say, oh, I had the weirdest dream, and you talk yourself out of it. Yeah, and he said, and as for when we dropped you behind the pig pen, he said, all of those were done purposefully. He said, because we knew that someday you were going to be writing this book. And those are imprints. He said, those are imprinted on your conscious memory. He said, everything else we had to bury. He said, you don't remember anything that happened in the ship, and you don't remember anything, that went down that way. But he said, we imprinted on you that you did have that contact. You did have, it's here, it's throughout my encounters, And he said, that's to give you the conscious recall that, yes, that was real. What I'm remembering now did happen. So,
Yep. And
but you're exactly right.
My producer will tell you. I can't remember which episode it was, but I had shared an experience that I had, and this is the most recent one that I'm allowed to remember. I've never done hypnosis, so I don't know what I don't know. But there was a period of extreme, really strong paranormal activity, which I'm starting to think there's a correlation between them and paranormal activity. I got up in the middle of the night, and I heard jiggling, and I went into my boys' room, and their doorknob to their closet was turning back and forth by itself. And I'm staring at it, trying to think about what I'm going to do. I try to wake them up and get them out of the room. It's not the first time we've had paranormal activity. And my daughters are awake because they heard it. They come in, they're like, do you hear that? I was like, yeah. And we're trying to decide what to do about it. And finally, my oldest daughter just grabs the doorknob and yanks it open, flips on the light. There's nobody in there. Nothing. We search that closet, nothing. So we close it up again, and it starts doing it again. And then this glass that was on the table next to the closet, which the door that's been turning, falls just for no reason off of there. And we're getting to a point where everything's getting just a little bit too much, because it's some of the strongest physical in-your-face activity that we've had for a while. And we're standing next to the door that opens to their room, the main door to their room. And that doorknob starts turning back and forth by itself. Only problem is we can actually see the other side of the door because the door is half open. So we can see there's nobody on either side of it touching it. Yeah. And we try our best to wake those boys up. We can't wake up those boys at all. My sons were not able to be woken. There was nothing we could do to bring them to consciousness. So we got out of the room at that point. The very next night, I was reminded of a visit that I had when I was very young. A woman came to me, and I knew, so I don't know how or why I knew, and I've always had this word associated with them. I consider them my guardians. I don't know why, but I knew I could call for help if I needed to. I don't know why. I don't know where the thought came from. I just somehow instinctively knew. So I went to bed that night and I projected out mentally a request for help for what was happening to make it stop, or to give me the ability to make it stop. And that night, there was bright white light shining in our window. Now, we live in the middle of the country on the top of a hill. We had one neighbor on that side, and they don't have a back porch light. Where that light source was coming from, I don't know, and I was afraid to get up and look at it.
Oh, really? It's white. It's usually okay.
Bright.
Okay.
It had been a while, and I wasn't comfortable confronting it, so I tried to go to sleep. Next thing I know, I'm in a very bright white place. It doesn't even seem like a room. There's just bright white light everywhere, and I'm surrounded by tall beings that seem to be made mostly of light, but they have garments on.
Yeah.
And
I love them. I love them. Oh,
they were awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But I wasn't able to see their faces. I don't know why. I couldn't look up at their heads.
They have like eyes, but they're so bright. They're just their garment and their light. I think they're called the tall whites, because I don't know where they're from or anything, but I've had a visit from them too. They're wonderful. They
suspended something in front of me. I don't know how to explain it because it doesn't really make sense in physical terms, because it was constantly shifting, and there was, what I understood was that they were sharing information with me and taking information from me. And then the next day, all the activity stopped.
Yeah.
And we had peace.
Yeah.
And we had peace.
Calling on help. We forget that we can call on help. We forget that.
But there was this temptation to just think I dreamt it.
Oh, yeah. That's just natural to do that. But I've stopped doing that pretty much now, because it's silly for me to try to do that anymore with all this, all the stuff I've had. And what I find is when I trust in it more, then it opens me up more to open communication, so that I have better communication if I trust in it. When you block it and you don't allow yourself to believe in it, then it kind of constricts it. And I like having communication. I wish I had even better, conscious. I wish I could just sit down every night and have a conversation.
I know, right? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've asked them to come back.
I'm trusting in it more and more. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
But that was actually just the start of my awakening. That was about 10 years ago. And that was when I was told I was a shaman when I was a teenager, but I wasn't ready for it. So that was actually kind of one of those catalyst things that started me on the path again. That was one of those things that got me going in that direction again. So I think when you look back at those things, I think there's a purpose there for them. You were shown something, and this was curious to me, when you were a little girl, about the future of the planet.
Right. Right. It's a common thing that most of what they call abductees, which I don't like that word, but most of us who have had encounters for all of our life, starting as a child and going on, or maybe even some who haven't, or maybe they buried it, but it tends to show up for sure in those of us who have ongoing contact throughout our life, that we had an experience as a child around the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere right in through there. They pick you up and take you up and show you the planet being destroyed. And it was a frightening thing, and it's a strange thing, because I can't explain it to people, because I can't explain it to myself, the way that it was that as a child I had that happen, and I never forgot it. Growing up, I never forgot it, and yet I never talked about it, and I never, if someone would have said, were you ever on a spaceship and taken up, by ETs, I would have said, no, what are you talking about? and yet there I had that experience, and I remembered it, and I remember I remember him kneeling down, kind of, because he wasn't much taller than me, but he was in that container suit that he wears.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought it down, and he looked me right in the eyes when he told me, this hasn't happened yet, but this is your, the destiny of the planet is to have this happen. And I started to cry. I was already crying because I thought that my home was gone. I thought my family had been killed. And he said, no, it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen if you don't change your ways. And it really got me mad. And I said, I'm just a little girl. I said, what am I supposed to do about it? I said, you go tell the president, or tell a big person, And he said, that's when he looked me really hard in the eyes, and I never forget that. And he said, it starts with one. And so they took,
so true.
It's hard to say how many of us they took up and did that with. Thousands upon thousands, if not a million, of us were shown that scene of the planet being destroyed, and it imprinted something, on us. It was part of our getting us ready, preparing us for the work we had to do, which was to assist the planet in her ascension, to be aware that humanity needed help. My dog is barking. I closed the curtain.
It's okay.
I closed the curtain so he wouldn't do that. But I tell you, I'm happy. He's been very, very sick. He's a little bit of a. Yeah. Oh, what are you barking at? Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Isn't it? Right now.
He's barking at. Yeah, there's somebody standing there in the corner.
They see things.
Yeah.
Well, it piqued my curiosity because I had a dream. It wasn't like, I remember someone showing me something like that, but I had a dream similar to what you described. It was probably in the mid-90s that I had it. In this dream, and it's one of those things I've never forgotten. I have dreams all the time, but there are like probably 10 that I have that just feel different, and I never forget them. This is one of them. The earth was just completely broken up, and there was actually like literally lava flowing in a lot of areas. It was all cracked and broken, and there were people still existing in some areas, but they were like in high mountainous areas, and they were living in groups together. And what I saw that really stuck with me was that there were these cloud cities that were floating alongside where the people were, like monitoring them and checking on them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Probably, it might have been a vision. It may have been time traveling. It may have been something that was shown to you as like a warning or as a wake-up call kind of a thing. Because, that's, who knows, it might be time traveling. It could have been anything.
There's so much possible, and that's the thing that people have to really wrap their minds around. I think that you were talking about the lessons in the book, and I think one of the lessons is really key to understanding why some people are able to, like psychic abilities that we have now. Some people are more prone to them than others. Some have it stronger than others. I think the veil is thinner for some people who are volunteers or program participants. But understanding that we exist in multiple dimensions at once, in multiple places, explains how we can know and understand things that we shouldn't really know or understand without, having any physical evidence, how we can know, what's going to happen to somebody or what's going to happen to us, and just know things that we really shouldn't have any way to know. But it's because there's really no time, no space. So a part of us always has access to everything that has ever been and everything that ever will be. And that other part of us that we're still connected to, people can call it your higher self or whatever you want, warns us. And when we ask, it'll help us transfer information to other people. And I think that's how the ability to see things and help people, I think that's how it works. I think that's why it works, is because we have that connection. Some of us are in tune to it and can access it freely, or somewhat freely, and others just still got that veil pulled down before their eyes so they can't touch it.
Right, right. I mean, it comes down to the fact that time doesn't really exist, that there is just only this now moment. And it comes down to that we are all one. What Da told me is that that's really all we need to know, is that we are all one with our Creator.
We're all one.
And if we understand that we're all one, that there's no separation between us, it's all just an illusion. And that's the awakening, is to come into the awareness that we're not separate, individual people with individual minds and individual thoughts, and living these little lives, short little lives on this planet, and then you die, and that's it, all there is. Or maybe you go, to heaven or hell or something, whatever it is that you've been taught. The truth of it is that, we're all eternal beings, and we are all that is. We are God, and we are an aspect of God, or we are God. I got to quit saying we're an aspect of God, because in truth we are just God. And but it makes it easier to understand when I put it that way. And we come out from Source to have an experience, to play in form in a three-dimensional world of duality, where there's supposedly this evil, good and bad going on. And we do that in order to entertain ourselves, in order to just to experience it. Yeah. And so, we treat it so seriously, and we forget, we get caught up in the distractions that are here, the having to earn the money to pay the mortgage and all that, and we forget the truth of who we are. And once you awaken to that, you can't go back anymore into the matrix. And
I think that's happening more now.
It is happening now. Well, it has
I think we're succeeding to some extent. I know. What did Da say about the transition that it was going through?
He calls it he calls it, it's called the shift and all kind. It's called the awakening. It's called ascension. It's called a lot of different things. He calls it the great earth changes. He calls it the great earth changes. And it's simply the souls on planet Earth, which have been stuck here for so long because they've been trapped in a cycle of reincarnation and rebirth and death and rebirth. And so he's referring to, those souls awakening and being able to continue on their ascension journey back to oneness, which is what we all came out from the Creator to have this experience. It was not meant that we get stuck on a planet like this, which is why when it happens, the ETs, what we think of as the ETs, or the caretakers of the planet, that's what their job is to come and give assistance, to kind of nudge us and kind of point us in the right direction, because otherwise we just get stuck.
How do we get stuck, though? I mean, if we're connected, how do we get stuck?
Well, we're not really that connected here on this planet. That's just, things went awry on this planet. Things went a little bit wrong.
Is that due to the immigration of the lower density souls that came in?
Yeah, it's the planet fell into fear. The humans, there was an idea of separation, and the three-dimensional beings on the planet fell into fear, and it was introduced by other beings, and because there are negative beings that are there, and they had an influence, and once fear overtook the humans, the frequency of the planet fell rapidly, which allowed, the negative beings can't come onto a planet when its frequency is high. They can't they can't get close to it. But the frequency on planet Earth fell so low that it was just it was an open door to all negative beings, and so there was a race of beings that came in and they could claim and basically said this planet is ours. And so they took control of the planet, and they have been in control of the planet and in control of the humans on the planet by keeping them distracted from remembering the truth of who they are, by setting up a system of monetary, financial, a work system and education. And then religion was meant to, the teachings from some of the spiritual teachers that came to try to put us back on track, those were hijacked by the controllers and used to make us feel even worse about ourselves. Instead of Jesus teaching that we're eternal beings and that we don't die, instead, they took his teachings and made it into, you're born into sin, and look, this man had to die because you're so sinful, and you have to, beg your way and pray your way back and earn your way back into heaven. So it just, it's a prison planet of sorts, and so it needed a little assistance. That's all.
I always find it so ironic that religion has kind of pulled our vibration down rather than raised it up, which you would think, given the principles behind religion, in theory, that it should raise the vibration up, but it doesn't seem to work that way. It doesn't seem to be doing that.
Because it was hijacked, because the teachings were hijacked, like I say, instead of the teaching of Jesus' teachings of we are all one. He taught that primarily, that we are all one, and that all these things that I do, you can do also. That he's not above us or superior to us; he's our brother. And all those teachings, instead, he was made into a savior because we're such lowly, scum of the earth idiots. We need to be saved, and that's not true. And so it teaches you to feel bad about yourself, to feel guilty, and that keeps you small, and it keeps you a victim. As long as the humans on planet Earth are in have that energy of victim mentality, they will be taken advantage of. As soon as they decide, what, I'm not a victim anymore, then it can't happen. You have to agree to be a victim before there will be a perpetrator. A perpetrator doesn't show up unless you give out the energy of being a victim and allowing it.
People are conditioned, though. We are living in a world where they're trying to condition from birth people to be put in that position, and fear is used so much in the media to bring people down, to stuff us with more drugs that will also block us off from our higher selves and our intuitions.
Right. And that's what's happening now. All the stuff that's going on, from 9/11 forward, it's been throughout history, all the wars, everything has always been fought. It's been fought just to keep us distracted and to keep our population under control, but also, it's for the gain of the controllers and of the elite. And the mass shootings that are happening now, much of it is staged, but it's not to say that there aren't people who are being slaughtered, because there are. But a lot of it is staged, but it's all definitely, if you were able to look behind the curtain, you would see that behind it is who gets who. It's the controllers trying to they feed off of our fear, and they want to take away as many rights as they can. And so they do something like they just did in California, and it gets people rallying to gun control and more government control in our lives. And that's, we shouldn't have to have any kind of, hopefully we'll evolve and awaken enough to the point where we don't need that kind of police kind of
and that's kind of, we're kind of at a critical point right now, at a pitch point where we've got to really focus on whether we're going to embrace fear or embrace love. And that's going to determine where we go.
You're exactly right. And my guys told me that about 3 weeks ago, I had a really, really intense, I would call it, it was just an extremely intense. It actually wore me out for about 3 days because it was so intense to download. And it was more of a, like, they must have come in and talked to me, because it didn't seem like it came in the form of a download, because I felt like I was almost being scolded. And they wanted me to write a blog and do a YouTube video and start talking very intently about it's time, for God's sake, it's time to live through your heart and meet everything with love. Everything has to be met with love. And they were just telling me that over and over again, and the choice has to be clear, and it's time. They just kept saying that, over and over again. You're almost out of time. And I know that, that's probably true, because the ascension, the door is open now, and we are experiencing that. And where you resonate, where your frequency is going to determine, what you experience as far as this ascension when it happens. And so if you're resonating with love, you know that your experience is going to be way more positive. So there's endless timelines available to us, just never-ending number of timelines that we can choose to access at this time based on our frequency. And so you want to be in love. You want to be in that state of love and forgiveness. So
it reminds me of that old song by England Dan and John Ford Coley, "Love is the Answer." It goes back so far, and it's such a simple truth.
It is. The truth is simple. I teach the Course in Miracles class, and we were just talking about that the other night. But it's very simple. Oh, I hear the music.
Here we go. We're going to break, and we will be back at the top of the hour.
Dave? Okay. I think this is a 2-hour show. I'm on a break right now, but come on in. No, come on in. You come in. Yeah, come on in. Why don't you just go downstairs and watch TV? I don't know how long it goes. Come on, Pookie. You never told me that it was, I don't know if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours. I hope it's not 2 hours. Come on, Pookie. Look how good Pookie's doing. Look how good he's doing. So good. Yeah. Nice to see you. Hi, Pookie. Pookie says hello. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I'll be down as soon as I'm done. Sorry.
Hello, this is this is Patrick English, your producer. And then before the show continues, I need to make a few announcements. You're listening to freedomslips.com, which is Revolution Radio, and it's the biggest user-supported internet station on the planet. And every month we need to raise $24.50, and we continue by donations. And if you like us and you like what we hear, please help us out and send us whatever you can spare. And it's the Christmas season, but then again, it's Christmas of giving, and we like it as well as you do. We like you, and we know that there's tons of people out here who listen. The chat room, some of us are in the chat room, but that's just a very small fraction of the actual listenership. But we need you as much as you need us. And before I go on, there's something that I need to read. There is an offer that will be part and parcel of this December. We're aiming to donate to selected charities over the festive season. If we raise our monthly goal of $24.50, that's $2,450, by Sunday, the 20th of December, 2015, then the surplus will be evenly distributed to two very special charities. 50% will be donated to Toys for Tots, and the remainder will be donated to Meals for Vets. Or B, if the monthly goal has not been achieved by the 20th of December, 2015, but has been achieved by Thursday, the 31st of December, the surplus will be donated to the station's local battered women's shelter. All three are good, but it's definitely, if we can, the more we can get in, the faster, the better. I would love to see this station get 2 or 3 months ahead in 1 month, and we could do that. At any rate, to help us achieve this special goal of ours, the station is running a special offer. Any listener donating $25 and over during all shows will receive a variable-sized pocket knife as a gift. It is important to mention that the donor would need to include their postal address details in the notes section upon donation. It's also important to mention that due to shipping and export constraints and restrictions, this gift applies to United States donors only. So that is our offer for this December so far. You never know if there's another one around the corner, but that always is a wait and see. But this is what we can offer you now, And since it's only the 4th of December, we're just starting the month, and we've got 125 so far. So we've got a ways to go. So please help us out with what you can, because it is really appreciated. And now I will turn the show back over to Shaman Lanita Elder and her guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Hopefully, we will get there this year or this month so that we can make those donations. Especially, both of these charities are really good, so that would be absolutely wonderful. I'd like to welcome Sherry back. Sherry, are you still with us?
I am. I
There
didn't
we
know
go.
we were going for 2 hours. Is this 2 hours or is it 90 minutes?
It's a 2-hour, yeah.
Oh, okay.
What I wanted to find out is, what do you think? Because obviously there's a lot of volunteers out there. Not everyone, has been able to um, come to a place where they were ready to do hypnosis and go back and actually remember, what's happening, who they are, why they're here. What do you think there are some signs that maybe people should look for in their life that would kind of indicate that maybe they might, want to possibly look into doing a regression, or just kind of going inward and maybe doing some meditation?
Yeah. I get asked this a lot by people who want to know if they've had experiences, they have dreams, or they have partial memories. And I know that Dolores and her quantum healing hypnosis is a therapy, and is meant to bring a lot of peace for people.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, and I agree that it can. So I always say, seek that kind of and seek that answer. Look for that only if you're really disturbed by your partial memories. If you're
Right.
losing sleep, like I was like going crazy. I became obsessed with a partial memory, and all of a sudden I couldn't get it out of my head, and it was time for me to wake up. I mean, it was programmed into my life. So you'll know if you're meant to look at those memories, if you're meant to go exploring what it is. I don't know that you should do it very lightly or just out of curiosity, because once you go there and you unlock that door, you're never the same after that. And maybe
There's no
that's
going
okay.
back.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing, certainly, but it's like, is it going to take over your life? For me, it took over my life, but it it just went the way that it went. But it can be very disturbing. You have to be ready to deal with whatever it is that shows up. And if you're in fear, it's going to be tainted by your perception is going to be tainted by that fear, and so it could take a while for you to get to the truth of what really happened to you. My hypnotist was a great hypnotist. He did a fabulous job, but he wasn't there as a like in the same context that Dolores and the people who
Right.
do that kind of therapy healing or regression work. It's for me, he was a nuts and bolts kind of a guy, and he was just there to get the details and get the story of what had happened during that missing time for me. And they had a psychotherapist there at the first time I regressed,
Mm-hmm.
and every time after, they made him available to me. But there was nothing he could say to me that gave me comfort. There was nothing anyone could say to me. I had to go on that journey myself and work my way back to a place where I could live a life that was somewhat normal, where you're not obsessed with fear. You just because you become racked with fear to know that you're being taken. It's not something you want to do lightly. You want to make sure that you're ready to deal with it.
I think I don't know how you feel about this, but I think for some may not need to remember in order to do what they need to do.
I'm glad you're saying that, because that's exactly where I would end up going with this, is that, it's not necessary. If you have a sense that you're a volunteer, and I think at this point in our journey, most people do know, and it doesn't matter really, whatever it is that you are feeling called to do, whatever is stirring in your heart and your passion, you're going to know it, so follow that, follow your heart, follow your passion. just go inward, and the answers are there within you. You're not going to get the answers outside of yourself. Yeah, you can get assistance by doing the regression, but make sure that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Not to just come up with a story that's interesting to tell. Even Da says to me, even Da told me not too long ago. He said, Sherry, you go out there and you tell your story of your abductions. And he said something like that. And he said, the story of your abductions is the carrot hanging on the end of the stick.
Right.
Said, you lure people in by the story of your abductions. He said, and people, they will say things like, oh, look at that lady over there. She's talking about how aliens have kidnapped her, and she might be crazy, but let's go listen to her. And he said, so your carrot, at the end of the stick is the abduction stories. But he said, when those people get close enough to you that they're listening to you and paying attention, he said, I want you to take the stick and hit them over the head and say, wake up, wake up.
Yes.
That's what he told me. And it was so funny because I didn't know where he was going with that story because he doesn't usually talk like that. And it just struck me so funny. And he said, so you see, the story, it's not about the abduction. He said, that's just the carrot to get people to pay attention to you so that you can tell them, it's time to wake up.
It's
so
the lessons.
I thought that was hilarious. Yeah.
It's the lessons.
They have a great sense of humor. Yeah.
It sounds like it. I was going to ask you about you'd mentioned about being protected in different situations and that you think that they're probably responsible. I have to say, I've had similar experiences and I think you're probably right. Would you share just real quick that the car incident? Because that was quite dramatic.
Which one? I think I gave
the one when you were literally turned. Well, there was another one more recently, wasn't there?
Yeah, I only put those three, and I have had lots of close calls. Apparently, I must be a really terrible driver. But the one where I was 30. Let's see, my children. I would have been 27 or 28 years old, and driving to work. That was really dramatic. That really was. I thought about that every day for years because I was driving to work and heading down a straightaway and driving in my Pontiac Grand Prix. It was a pretty cool car and going a little bit over the speed limit, probably about, I think I was going around 62 or something, going down a hill, and it was a straightaway. And I drove into work, 5 days a week going the back way, and I drove the back way because I liked to drive fast and I could get to work faster going the back way. And so at the bottom of this long hill, I could either go straight or I could turn. Both would get me to my office. And, I would alternate going one way or the other, and I just never really thought too much about it. So this one particular morning, I was driving along, and I was driving pretty fast, so I decided to just go straight. And only I didn't go straight. All of a sudden, it was the strangest thing. The car and the radio was on, and there was an announcer doing a commercial about a car dealership. I remember that. And his voice just went from talking normal to just like how it would sound if you went underwater. And it just, basically, it was slowing down. It just went, ooh, it just dipped way down low. And that's the first thing I noticed. And then I noticed that I was being pushed back against the seat. No, I was being, it's not true. Let's see, what's happening to my body? Yeah, I actually was kind of being pushed back, which doesn't make sense because we were slowing down. When you slow down, would you be pushed back against the seat?
Usually when you accelerate,
yeah, it would be but something came in. I remember I was upright in my seat. I remember looking at my hands on the steering wheel and observing my hands start to move the steering wheel. This all happened all at the same time. The voice on the radio, this pressure keeping me in my seat, and my hands on the steering wheel in the 9 o'clock position kind of thing that they teach you, or 3 o'clock position. No, it was 9 o'clock because my left elbow was on the armrest. And I watched as my hands turned the steering wheel of the car, and I thought, why am I turning the steering wheel? That doesn't make sense. But I observed that I had slowed down. I was going very, very slow now, and I was going like click, click, around the corner, and I was making the turn. It was a 90-degree turn to the left. And as I went around that corner, there was a woman sitting in a car at that stop sign. And I looked at her, and I looked into her eyes, and she was looking at me, and she had kind of a look of terror on her face, fear, the minimal fear. And I tried mouthing the words to her. I tried to say, "What's going on?" But it came out, "What?" Like that.
Oh, wow.
And
Slow motion.
It was amazing, yeah. And I got around that corner, and as soon as the car got around the corner and it was straightened out, my steering wheel was back straightened out. Then it just then it just zipped right back up to the speed that I had been going before, and it happened really fast. And I hit the brakes immediately and looked in my rearview mirror to see if that woman was still at the stop sign, because I decided I was going to turn around and go back and talk to her and see what she had observed, because I couldn't figure out how that had happened, what had just happened to me. And so I pulled off to the side of the road. I was really shaken up, and I pulled off to the side of the road, and I was going to just compose myself and turn around and go back to talk to her, when all of a sudden I noticed this movement going by my car on the right-hand side of me. And I looked, and it was a train. And that train, I looked, and I had driven over those railroad tracks for years, and there was no warning, there was no bar that came down, there was nothing. And that train was going at a pretty good clip. And that train was already in the intersection. The engine of it was already past the intersection. I looked back at that, and I thought, if I would have gone straight, I would have been splatted right up against the side of that train right now. I didn't see it when I came down the hill. I never slowed down for that railroad crossing, because all I knew was that I had to go over some bumps there. Oh, I couldn't believe it. And I just sat there. I just started to shake. And I was shaking so bad I couldn't drive back to see that woman. I didn't even think about her again. I just was shaken up by the fact that I had just narrowly escaped death. And then, I got to work, and I couldn't work. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept playing it over, and I kept trying to figure out, well, how did that happen? Who did that? Was that the hand of God that came down and turned my car like that? Like I was nothing more than a toy, like when I was little, I used to play with my toy cars, and you'd drive them on the roads, and because that's how it felt when the car turned. It felt
isn't
like
that weird?
there was a big hand on it.
I said, isn't that weird to have that feeling like, somebody's just turned you like you're a toy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was bizarre. That was really a bizarre thing. And I've had a lot of weird things in my life, but that one really stayed with me a long time, because it shook me up, because I had two little girls. They were, my daughters were probably, my youngest one was probably about 3 or 4, I think, at that time. I can't remember. They were quite little. Yeah, my oldest one was in kindergarten. So my youngest one would have been even younger. And so, to think that I could have, been killed.
But you were protected because you had a purpose.
I was protected, yeah. I didn't talk about that. I didn't tell that. It took me a long time before I finally even told my husband about it.
Really?
I couldn't talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, they've done that. They saved me a number of times from car accidents. I've been saved a number of times. And when it was revealed to me, it was actually told to me that that's how I was going to exit. I was going to take my exit in 1990 or early 91. This part's not in the book because I didn't learn it until after the book went to press. And I was supposed to actually be killed in a car accident, because that was my assignment time. But
oh my goodness! Oh wow! I don't think I'd want that information. I don't know. I don't think I'd want
to know that.
Yeah.
The only reason they showed that to me, I don't think I was supposed to know. I mean, I remembered the meeting that I had in my living room where I had to argue the case to be allowed to stay, because they wanted me to come back, wanted me to be done with it here. And they said it was going to get very painful and chaotic here, and they thought that I had already done more than my share, and besides, it was in my daughter's best interest for me to leave, and I couldn't understand how it could possibly be in my daughter's best interest for me to get killed in a car accident.
Right.
I didn't understand any of it, but now I'm estranged from both of my daughters, and that's been very, very painful for me. And in an effort to help me deal with that, they came in and they showed me well, here's why you're estranged from your daughters, because you were actually supposed to lead. And because you
Right.
didn't leave, you changed. And so there's things that you were agreed to, in their lives and in my lives, that certain things that needed to be, worked out and experienced by them as souls and by me. And so because I altered that plan, things had to work out the way they did. And so
Yeah.
I
Because there's
accept,
always a different effect. It's like
what's
cause and
that?
effect, it's like a cause and effect, and you
Yeah,
actually kind of went down a new
yeah,
timeline, a different timeline.
yeah, I did. I accessed a different timeline, which is fine. But they said part of what needed to happen was this had to, the relationship had to break apart one way or the other, either through my death or to them, become, kicking me out of their lives. They both have told me they don't want me in their life, and it's shocking to me because I was so close to them. So, but it happens. Everything happens for a reason, and I know
It
that. But
does.
that was a very hard thing for me to accept. It's every day. It still is hard. I have to talk myself through it every morning. Every morning I wake up missing them, and every morning,
Yeah.
I have to work my way through it again and to a good level of acceptance. And so it's part of my spiritual journey to work through that.
I'm telling you right now that it's not going to be the end result. It's going to change. I feel that. I feel that you're going to be reunited with them within
Okay.
probably, I'd say, 3 years.
Yeah.
But they've got to
I'm
work
hoping
through
so.
stuff. And this,
Yeah.
you said Da, was it Da that told you that? No, no, it was the Men in Black, wasn't it? That said that there was um a family lineage
Yeah.
thing that they work in
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the Men in Black.
And
They were.
I think that has a lot to do with why it feels like that's a lot to do with why there's this resistance right now. Um,
Exactly.
they're coming to terms and they're trying to deal with it, and they can't handle it the way you handle it. They can't
Yeah, and
handle it the way
they've
you
got their
handle it.
own. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're exactly right, and I know that you're right. That's true. They've got to they've got to work through their own stuff. They've got their own
Yeah.
stuff in their own lives, and I have to
Just gotta
allow
let them
that.
have that time. Yeah. Let them have that time. Everybody's got to come to those things. I mean, you weren't ready right away either, I mean, but you
Oh
have a
no.
different
Yeah.
outlook towards things than a lot of people do, in that, well, you're like me in that it's like, I've always been like, whenever I'll share something that's happened to me, for a long time, there was a website that, was for conspiracy things and things like that. It was a place that I felt safe to share experiences and read experiences of other people. Whenever I would make a post and share something that had happened in my life that was very unusual and wouldn't be accepted really anywhere else, I would always say, in the post, like, look, I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying.
Hmm.
You can choose to believe it or not believe it. I'm sharing this so that others who have had something similar or who can resonate with this know that they're not alone, and so that they can see an experience from another point of view other than their own. And you kind of
Hmm.
have almost the exact same stance towards that.
I
And
do. I
it,
have
it
the exact
helps.
same.
It helps. It helps you
Yeah.
be able to accept it a little sooner than, if you don't, and if you worry about what other people are thinking. So they just need some
Hmm.
time. They just need some time.
Well, and that's all true. I mean, I get letters, emails every day from people, thanking me for speaking out about the abduction experience and putting it in a different context, one that doesn't have fear associated with it. Not to say that there aren't some, the mil labs, the military abductions are very fearful, but
Mhm.
but still, you have to take the victim consciousness out of the equation, even on those, no matter what it is. You have to take the victim consciousness out of it, and so I get emails from people thanking me for speaking out and saying that I'm courageous, and I would say I'm not courageous. I didn't really have a choice. It's what I came here to do, and I was wired to do this. And I was blessed to be wired um, what part of when I came in on a live stream, and my energy stream was such that I came in with the inability to care what people think about me. I just don't really care if people don't believe me, or if they laugh, or if they think I'm crazy. And I live in a very small town here, and there are a lot of people who think I've gone off a deep end.
Wisconsin is nothing but small towns.
Yeah, it's just, but yeah, I've even friends who go back as far as high school who say, "Oh, Sherry's lost it. She's insane. I hear she's insane." But and I think it's funny, and I think it's sad at the same time, because I'm here to help awaken people, and I would hope that, those are the people who haven't bothered to read my book or to talk to me about it.
The right ones find you when they're meant to, though. I've noticed repeatedly, and this actually just happened recently, that people that are meant to cross paths are drawn together in one form or another. Always happens. We were in Eureka Springs last weekend. There was a art bazaar, and like I told you before, my husband does the stained glass art, so we were there for that. And there were two ladies there, right next to each other, and one of them, and I've found this a lot of them were already fans of my husband's page for his art. And so they come over and they visit with us, and then I go over to take a look at their stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome, I love it. And then we start talking, and within like 5 minutes we're hugging each other, and we're realizing we were all meant to be together. There are 3 of us now, and it's just like all of a sudden we're like instant pack, it's because we just connected, and we were all on the same wavelength. And this one, what's really crazy is one of the girls was actually talking to me about a situation where she healed her brother because he was having a headache, and he's like, well, why don't you try to use your hands and pull this out, right? And so she does it, and she doesn't know how or why, but she pulls it out. It's just something she naturally knew how to do. Pulled that pain out and put it into something else. And I just read in your book almost the exact same thing. And it hit me, and I'm like, it's just kismet. I don't know how else to put it. But that's how it works. I mean, the universe is everybody connected, and so it makes sure that those people that are meant to cross lines, our paths cross.
I've had a lot of experiences, and they're getting more and more frequent, where I see people and we look at each other the first time you meet them, and it might be at a conference, or it might be hard. It could be anywhere. It could be just at a random event, and you look at this person, and it doesn't matter their age or what, who they. You just and you lock eyes, and you think, I know that person. And sometimes,
instant connection.
I've had people, they walk right up to me and they say, I know you. And I say, I know you too. And they say, and a lot of, if it's a younger kid, a lot of it'll happen with younger kids who are right now, they'd be probably in their early 30s, I would say now. And I've had them do that to me. And one kid I met in Costa Rica, I tell that story. He's a perfect example. I met him when I was in Costa Rica. I was thinking about moving there and visiting this sustainable living neighborhood. And he was in charge of growing the food. And when I went to lunch with some of the residents from out there, he was there. And I looked at him, and I had the same thing. I just got a bolt. You get that bolt. It's like electric almost through your body. And he said the same. He said, I know you. And I said, yeah, I know you too. And he leaned in and he said, do you remember where you know me from? And I said, I sure do. And he said, can we talk later? And I said, yeah. He was one of, because when I'm on the ship, there's always a lot of kids. He's a Pleiadian, and he came in as a volunteer here. And I knew him as well as I know my own children. And so that happens a lot and you recognize them on a soul level. They don't look the same. It's not the body. It's not physical at all. It's energetic. And you just recognize their frequency, and you know who they are. So it's cool when it happens. And that's how it's going to be, the new Earth, where we're headed. That's the way it's going to be.
It's going to be amazing. Absolutely wonderful. And you just mentioned children. I was wanting to ask you, and I know you cover this in the book, so let's go to this real quick. But what did it feel like for you, knowing that you had children out there that, beyond the ones that are in your, nuclear family on Earth? How did that feel? Well, tell the story, because I really think you should share it.
That happened in, I think it was 2010 or 2011, I think, right as the book was almost being finished. And because I think I put it in the book. Yeah, it was in the book because you just read it. And I keep forgetting I put that in there. It was it was added on at the last minute, I think. The story, I was estranged from my children, both of them at that time. Have been for a number of years. So I was in Arizona, and I was feeling kind of bad about missing my children. And I'd lost my family, my birth family. So I lost my birth family, and my two children kicked me out of their life. And it all happened all within just such a short period of time. Went from having this big happy family to all of a sudden nothing. And that's kind of having a pity party, I'd say, feeling bad about it. And so I was having a lot of contact with Da, and a lot of it was very conscious. I was able to carry on conversations quite a bit. So one day I said, I miss my children so much, and I miss my family, and I feel all alone. And I said, I know that I have children. I knew that I had children, but I couldn't recall being with them other than just vague, distant feelings of having held them and rocked them on the ship and stuff. And I said, would it be possible for me to spend some time with my children, my hybrid children that resulted from the eggs you took from me? And I don't remember getting an answer. I just sent that thought out, that question out, and I don't recall him telling me, be ready, we're going to do that. The next thing I knew is it didn't take very long at all. It couldn't have been more than a week. Within a week, I'm sure that I got picked up, and they took me to another planet and I don't know how I know this, but it was a smaller planet. It was smaller than Earth, but it was like a replica of Earth. It was very much like Earth, but it wasn't Earth. And it was beautiful. And they took me to a place that was, it was cool because it had a big white house, a beautiful big, you'd call it a mansion. There was a big white house there, and there was an outbuilding. It was not like a barn, but it was an outbuilding that was, I believe it was like a maroon color. So it was like on Earth, like a farmstead. There was a lot of foliage. The trees looked different. There were trees, and they weren't quite the same. And they had other humans there, and there was this big area, big open grounds, beautiful grounds, and there were lots and lots of people there, and they were clustered in different groups. And they had me stand out on, I don't know how to describe it. It'd be like a field road, as you would describe a field road. But they had me stand on this flat area, and in front of me and behind me were, but quite a distance away to where you couldn't, it was quite a distance. I would say it was almost about like a half a football field away. There was a man, I think there was a man behind me, and there was a woman in front of me. Something like that. And they had us stand facing all in the same direction, but a long distance apart from each other. And I got the feeling that was so we wouldn't recognize each other. Face to face, And they had us stand in this long, long line. And I didn't know what was going on. And they said, then there came an announcement that there would be, we're doing I remember the words that they used, a tribute, is that? And it was meant to be an appreciation. This is an appreciation for those, this is the way they put it, this is an appreciation for those who went behind the veil in service to humanity and served the humanity on Earth by participating in the hybrid program. And then all of a sudden, from behind me, I had to turn around then, and because from behind me, you turn around because you became aware that there wasn't a sound, but somehow, I don't know if they announced it or what, but from behind me came all of these hundreds of little flying discs, the little saucers that they use when they
wow.
to extract the eggs and ova.
Yeah.
And they came in from all different levels and different directions. They came from all over, and it was just beautiful. Hundreds of them just flying really, really fast. I can't describe to you what it was like, because you thought they were all going to collide together, but they all just fell into this line, and they started to fly down over the top of us, but they didn't fly overhead straight across. They came overhead on their side, and because they were all tipped up on end, and they flew overhead of us really fast and really low and really close together. And it was just amazing, all those ships coming together, and none of them touched each other, but they were flying, almost touching as they flew over. It was the most amazing spectacle. It's fantastic. And they said they did that as a tribute to us, to thank us for the service that we had done. And then when that was over, then we all got to go over and meet with, not maybe all, but some of our hybrid children. And there were about 16 of my hybrid children sitting over. They're sitting on what looked like could only call it like, it was like a hillside that had been built up. It had these stone rocks, this big stone piled up against it, and then there was like a plateau, and then there was another pile of stones keeping it back. So it was like a two-tiered grassy area, and they were sitting on those rocks. And so one by one, they came forward and introduced themselves to me. And some of them I recognized or felt like, on a soul level, I knew them. And but I got to spend time with them, like a picnic. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I just loved it, and it's very moving for me, and it just touched me deeply that they did that, and it was more real than my 4th of July picnic I had with friends and family. It was just every bit as real as that.
Did you feel like a connection with them?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
absolutely did.
Now,
Yes.
did you actually carry them? I mean, did you ever have a time period where you kind of felt like you were carrying, even though
No.
you didn't? Okay.
Nope, I never had that where the pregnancy would disappear and then come back.
Okay.
My mother had that with me, but I never had. What they did is they actually just took the ova and they actually.
So they just test tubed it basically, or something like that.
Yeah, they showed me on the ship. They showed me where they stored the ova. They showed me, they showed me the embryos being incubated in these containers on the ship. They showed it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in that room a lot, and they showed me the fetuses, and they basically just grew them.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting. Yeah, they're wonderful children. They're wonderful beings. It's surprising how old they were at first. I was like, these are my children. There was there was a man there who was like, 40 years old,
Mm-hmm.
At least. And at least, that's the age he's going to be in. And I thought, that's too old to be my child. But they started taking my older.
They started taking them.
Yeah,
long time.
Yeah. So it did add up. But at first I was a little bit shocked, but absolutely they were very, very brilliant. I would call the word. I mean, their light was very brilliant children. And they said that I will know them again. I will be with them again.
Yep.
Great. So I have 47 hybrid children at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Oh my goodness.
And I have clones. They also told me they cloned me, which really got mad. I don't think that's in the book.
Huh. No, that is not.
Yeah, he told me they cloned me, and I got mad, and I said, "You what?" And he acted surprised, and he said, "Well, we only do that. That's a what do you say? That's a
like an honor."
Yeah, it's an honor. He said, "We only clone the best." And I said, "So there's other me's walking around?" And he said, he looked at me real puzzled, and he said, "Other yous walking around?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, so there's other me's." Because he said there were 6 clones of me, and I said, "So there's 6 other me's walking around." He looked at me and said, "Sherry, there are no other Sherrys walking around. There are no other yous. He said,
Mm-hmm.
there are other bodies that might look like you. He said, but there is only one you. And that's when I got, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's true. And so now lately, since I've gotten sick, I've been asking him, I said, can I get one of those clone bodies back? Bring me one that's like 40. That would be good. If you could, I would like to do an exchange, trade in my used up body and get a new one, you know?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if we could do that?
Well, I'm
Just
kind of
clone me.
thinking they can do that. They certainly can do that. If they can't
But would
heal,
they?
you know, I haven't. It's one of the few times in my life I haven't been able to really, but I'm still working on healing.
Maybe that's why all those celebrities that don't seem to age, that's what happens.
Yeah, they clone. Take
There
a
we
president in a new body. Why not? Works for me. I'll do it.
go.
Because you know it's fun to be here as long as you have a healthy body. It's not as much fun when
Exactly.
your body.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think all experiences are important, though.
Well, yeah, there's a reason why I'm having this experience.
Yeah.
Being revealed to me as I knew it would be. So.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you to share your Draco experience, which preceded your friend's experience. So if we could start with yours and then kind of go into your friend's, if you could share
my
those.
blog.
Yes, I
You've been reading
have.
my blog, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had an experience one night here at my house. So it was the middle of the night, and I came awake with an awareness of a vibration, a frequency close by me that was not one that I was comfortable with. And I wasn't afraid, but I got up. I was wide awake and got out of bed, and I knew right where to walk to. So as I look back on this event, I'm sure that I had been out, out there talking to him. I had been having a conversation and been conversing with this being, and then I just went back to bed, and then for whatever reason, I was meant to wake up and consciously have this experience. So, because when I got out of bed, I was totally awake and alert, and I walked right into my bathroom and stood and looked up and knew where to look. I looked out the window and saw this Draco standing out under the birch tree that I have out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very bright night, which it can be it must have been a full moon or close to a full moon, because I live in the country and street lights. But I could see him as clear as could be. And the longer I stood there and looked out, because I didn't turn the lights on in the bathroom, it was light enough for me to go in there I didn't turn on any lights.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stood there and looked at him. And I remember that I rubbed my arm, and because I remember saying to myself, Sherry, this is real, this is happening, you are looking at a Draco. And I took in all the details of him, the lime green coloring that he had, and his eyes with the vertical slit. He stared at me. I rubbed my arm, and I turned and I looked at the clock, and I took note of the time, and it was something like 2:04, 2:06 or something like that. And I looked at him, and I heard him ask me permission to scan me. And I've had Dracos visit me before, and I've had them scan me, but I haven't seen, and I've been aware of them. I've felt them, and my dog has seen them and growled and cowered in fear. But I have not seen them, and they've scanned me without my permission. This guy asked permission, and so I said, sure, go ahead. And so they scan, they start at the top of your head, and it clicks. There's an actual kind of an auto, it's like a click, click, click as it goes down through, and it comes all the way down to about your waist, and then it stops. So he scanned me, and as he was scanning me, I just extended love to him. And just was in such a state of love that just actually felt pretty good. And the sense that I got from it was he was soaking up that love. He was just soaking it up. And I had no fear whatsoever. Matter of fact, I decided, after standing there looking at him and looking at me, there was no more communication other than me just extending love and him seeming to just soak it up. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, and then, if he doesn't have anything more to say to me, I'm going to go to bed. It didn't occur to me to maybe I should say something. I wish I would have thought for me to say something and have a conversation with him, because I think, who was it? Was it Barbara Lamb or somebody I know had an encounter with a Draco in her living room or something, and she had a really nice conversation, she said.
Oh.
But anyway, I didn't do that, and sometimes I just don't think, But I stood there, I made myself stand there for 10 minutes, which is a long time when you're just standing. But I watched the clock, and I stood there, and I continued to pinch myself and be, okay, you're perfectly wide awake. And then after 10 minutes, he was still standing there, and I went and I jumped back into bed, and I fell instantly asleep. The next morning, I came awake, and I just literally I was just hyper. I jumped out of bed, and I was pacing around my bedroom, walking back and forth, and just scolding myself and going, you idiot, what are you doing going to sleep with a Draco right outside your bedroom? What are you doing? What were you thinking? And then all of a sudden, I heard Don's voice audibly, and he said, Sherry, you would judge this? And I said, what? And he said, what is your concern? And I said, well, there was a Draco here last night. I said, there was a Draco here, and I went right back to bed, and I said I was vulnerable, and I could have been hurt or something. I said something like that. I said, and he said, and why is that? And I said, well, they're low vibrational beings. They're aren't they evil? And he said, you would judge this? And I said, well, I think that they're. And he said, you would judge this? And I said, no. And he said, you have nothing to fear. He said, you long ago surpassed that frequency. You have nothing to fear. And then he said, stand in the truth of who you are, and they can't touch you. So awesome. I took that to heart, and I thought that was pretty good advice. And I've since used that a lot. Stand in the truth of who you are. They can't touch you. So in other words, if your frequency is high, low frequency beings can't come near you. And my
something that struck me about that?
What?
If they're lower frequency beings and you sent that love out to him and you felt like he was absorbing that love, can't they raise their vibration just like us? Could you possibly be actually helping him raise his vibration?
My understanding is, I was going to get around in my story. The story continues on that we actually, my partner and I, we actually did enter into an agreement to work with a group of the Dracos who wanted to raise their frequency during this time of ascension and switch from service to, because they wanted to switch out of service to self to service to others, which you can only go so high under the service to self. And they were tired of playing the role of the bad guy, and so there was this group of them that wanted to switch over, make a switch, and to do that they needed assistance. They needed, so they started coming in and doing Reiki on us, and they started doing healing modalities on us, and it was a really interesting time, and my guys had done Reiki before, and it was fabulous. These guys were a little more awkward with it. They would come in and start doing it before we were asleep, and Jim used to lay in bed and he'd be like, Sherry, someone's touching my feet. And I'd be like, oh yeah, me too. And he'd say, what is that? And I said, that's those guys. They're here to do the Reiki. And he said, well, can't they wait till we're asleep? I said, it's just creepy, And I would be like, don't open your eyes because you don't want to see them. But they were a little bit awkward with the way they did it, but see, it was during that time then that, what happened is, I did end up being attacked then. And, something happened and I had to banish them from my house because there was one bad apple in with them, or maybe it wasn't them, maybe it was just happened, it happened another time though, and I couldn't take my chance. I had to banish them, which I felt bad because I have to tell you, I just still feel nothing but love for the Dracos. And people want to string me up when I say that, but I just see them as totally innocent, Yeah. And I see their soul, and everybody plays a part, and it's just a role in this game that we're playing. This game of duality of good and evil, and that's the way I see it. I so much see this life as people. We're all just oneness, and we're just playing these parts.
Wow.
What's the difference,
You didn't write that anywhere. I can't even believe that I picked that up. Can't even believe I picked that up.
Where did I write? I don't know that I don't know if I wrote that on my
You did
blog,
not
and
mention that you were working with them in that way anywhere that I've found. I just sensed it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm not talking about it much because I don't want to
Yeah,
elicit fear in people. But I think that this year, on the few conferences I go to, I'm probably going to bring it up. But I'm going to try to present it in a way that it doesn't come
gently.
off as fear-based. Yeah, and
Yeah,
because our biggest challenge that lies ahead for us as a human race is going to be to forgive those who played the role of the perpetrators. You know, those that held us captive, and you know, but they were playing a role. I mean, they had their part, you know, and we had our part, and so we have to allow that. You know, we have to just let it be. But there's going to be a lot of people who, I think, and that's what God's been talking to me about, because disclosure is right around the corner, and this thing called a data dump that I keep hearing about is supposed to be happening, but they're fearful that if the timing of it isn't right, that there are those that will go off on a tangent, because when they find out how they've been manipulated and lied to, that they're going to react in anger. And so it's like, when do we do this, disclosure stuff? So it's going to be paramount that we respond with love and not with anger, and because otherwise that's just going to keep us back in the third dimension.
That's what we got to do.
We don't want to be there. Yeah.
And you know what? I remember in your book you mentioned that you had met a psychic who had said that you were working with two races. Remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
at the
time, you didn't. You're like, you thought you were only working with one.
Yeah.
I think that person knew already that you were going to be working with the Dracos, or perhaps you maybe already were having some experiences with them that maybe you just weren't remembering yet.
Well, I know that I've worked with Ashtar. The Ashtar Command is who I'm directly linked and working with them, and then I'm working with Da, his group, which they don't really have a name as far as where they're from.
Right.
A lot of people want to know what is he? Is he a gray? And his famous words that I've said that 100 times. When I asked him, "Are you a gray?" and he said, "That would not best describe the truth of who I am. I am what you would call an etheric being." And when I pressed him more, and I said, "Well, then what are you?" and he said, "Well, I'm a voyager of the universe, going where needed in service to the Creator." And that's what he is. He doesn't label. They don't label themselves. Once you get up past the fourth dimension, you don't really label. Labels just don't really exist. So, that's us. We're kind of enamored with, what, are you talking to Pleiadians or Arcturians, or are you working with the Greys, or are you working with the Dracos? We like to label, but they just present themselves, and the way they appear to us is the way that we've made up, that we want our possible statement to fit the role that they're playing.
Quick question. Their eyes, in your experience, in your memory, can you see your reflection in their eyes?
When he's got his container suit on?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because my girls, when they were probably, I think they were probably like 6 and 8 years old, they each independently drew pictures for me of beings that visited them.
Mm-hmm.
And they drew the exact same picture. And on both of the pictures, on their photo, in the eyes of the being, which looked like a gray, but there was a reflection of their body reflected back in its eyes.
I don't recall. What I recall when I look into his eyes, when he's got that container suit on, is a lot of sparkle and light. I mean, there is like a light, a pinpoint of light when he's like teasing me or showing affection toward me. There's this sparkle of light in it. But I don't recall ever seeing my reflection. I'm thinking back, when I was a little girl, and he knelt down and on the ship when he showed me the planet being Earth destroyed, and he looked deep into my eyes. At that time, he just penetrated me. I'll never forget looking back at him, and he said, it starts with one, and I'm not seeing my face looking back at me, so I'm not sure. That might be a different. He told me that those those suits are being used by all different,
Lots of, yeah.
similar suits are used by a lot of different beings, because you don't have form once you get past fifth dimension, higher fifth dimension. You don't have form. So these beings that are coming to the planet, and if they are working on the planet doing stuff, if they don't have a body to put on, or to, they'll use one of those containers. And so there's a lot of them that are using those little gray type bodies.
We're coming up on our time. Do you have any upcoming events that you'd like to share with people? Any dates or anything, speaking engagements or anything?
Well, I cut way back. I'm only going to be. I'm not going to probably accept any other invitations. I'm just going to speak at the Ozark Mountain Conference, UFO Conference in April. And then I'm speaking at Contact in the Desert in June.
Okay.
I've got something in Canada in, when is that? I've got something that I agreed to a long time ago in Canada. But otherwise, I'm really, because I need
not
to
doing
get
as many.
Back.
Right.
Yeah, this poison took a big bite out of me. So
well,
I'm nurturing myself.
Okay. We have been speaking with Sherry Wilde. She is the author of The Forgotten Promise, which you can get a copy of the book at Ozark Mountain Publishing's website, which is www.ozarkmt.com. And you can also get it on Amazon.com. Sherry, I want to thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate everything that you've had to share with us.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone.